Hello, I'm Frank Luna, and welcome to our premiere episode of Making Space, our newest addition to the Latino USA and TV and Arizona Barrio Stories family. Making Space is intended to bring thoughtful, engaging conversation, stories, and valuable information to the Chicano Latino community from the LGBTQ plus perspective. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome a gentleman who's a good friend of ours, Mr. Ernesto Ortiz. Ernesto is the development manager for the Herberger Theater. Having grown up in Phoenix, Ernesto is a business leader in the community, a success story, and a role model for the younger generation of Latinos who follow him. His story offers a message of encouragement and hope. I invite you to join me in making space for today for Mr. Ortiz. Ernesto, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Oh my gosh, thank you very much. And I want you to give me that intro, or I'm going to bring you everywhere with me because that's amazing. Who is that person? Yeah.
Well, before we get into our actual interview questions, Ernesto, why don't we start off with you briefly telling us about yourself? But before you do, I'd like to mention something that I found amazing and frankly courageous about you in preparing for our show today. Okay. And that is that I found out that you first walked out on stage as a performer at the tender age of 5 years old. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I think 5. Yeah. Little. Yeah. And I'm just a little bit older now. But I spent my whole life on stage in some form, whether it was dance, acting, speech, whatever it is. And that's been a big foundation of my life is the arts, both performing and visual. Yeah.
Well, tell us more about yourself.
Well, my birth name is Ernesto Ortiz, also my stage name. Let's see here. I was born in Oregon, Nissa, Oregon. My parents were migrant workers, and when at the age of 10, I moved here to Avondale, actually, and I grew up there was there for a few years. When my parents divorced, I moved to Maryville, and that's when the party started. Let me tell you,
Maryville, yeah.
I have all the great memories of Maryville.
Okay,
yeah. And I consider that my home, Maryville, the West Side, and I'm very proud of it. Very proud of that community. It's a beautiful, rich, wonderful community. And again, I've spent my life in the arts. Part of being in the arts is you have to learn how to raise money because you have to fund your projects. And it turned into something that I was actually good at and enjoyed. And I've been working in fundraising or development, as they call it now, for over 20 years now. That's
quite a bit.
That's a long time. And because you also have a development background, that's a long time for a development person. Usually it's a tough job, and they have like a few years under their belt, and then they just move on to something else, but I love it. I love it because it's storytelling, and I love storytelling. It gives me another outlet to perform in some fashion and talk about things that I love.
But you've been one of the few Latinos in the field, as well.
Yeah, if you go, and I'm not saying anything everyone else isn't saying, but you go into like a room full of fundraisers, and the majority of them are like, white women in the field, and we need to diversify. There's a lot of organizations that need resources, and we need people that they represent telling those stories about the organizations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's important. It's important, and I also think the reason we don't have as many fundraisers of color is because people don't. When you talk about fundraising, I always hear you can have a job doing that. You can have that as a full-time job.
Absolutely,
it's a good full-time job, and you can make a good living depending on where you go and what you do. People they kind of equate it to sales, which it's a little different, but people make a lot of money doing sales. We're very familiar with it. The same can happen on the other side. So
absolutely.
I think I have a commitment to talking about fundraising and development work and how much I love it. And hopefully getting more people that look like myself into the field.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, what do you see as the greatest influences on the person that you are today?
Well, of course, my parents. I have two great parents. My dad's deceased, but my mom's still living, but both great in their own respect. My dad was so funny. And I know that's where I get my sense of humor.
Yeah.
He was so funny and always making jokes, but also he was an artist, not trained, but he was very creative and could make stuff out of nothing. I remember we wanted to buy a doghouse, right? Right, and we went and looked at this doghouse, and he was like, $40 for that piece of plastic? You're not buying that thing, right? So he took a screen door, those metal screen doors, and he welded out of the piece of the screen door a doghouse that is still at my sister's house to this day. Yeah. It was probably hot because.
Some of our audience might know you. The other part of your life is that you are also a comic.
Yeah. Stand-up comic. This is going to be my 13th year.
Wow,
as a stand-up comedian. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah. And it came out of fundraising.
Oh, really? How's that?
I was I believe it was St. Mary's Food Bank. I was working at the time, and they had a fundraiser at the Tempe Improv. They asked for a representative to go out there and speak, right? And so I said, okay, I'll do it. I went up on stage. It was, the normal thank yous, and people laughed. I'm not sure what I said, but they laughed. The club manager at the time, or the book, I forget, one of the guys there said, I don't recognize you from the comedy scene, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I would never. No way. I'm not a comedian. He's like, well, if you ever want to get on stage, talk to me and we'll give you 5 minutes and, you can go on stage. Wow. Well, it took me a year. I had to take a workshop, be over prepared for it, And I finally went up to him and he's like, I don't remember this conversation, but okay, you can go on stage. And since then, that was 13 years ago. Yeah.
It sounds like a natural extension as a performer.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it helps with other I've done theater since, and it's very helpful. Yeah.
That's great. Now, let me ask you, in your youth, what did you learn about yourself from the people around you?
From the people around me? That's a good question. I have to say that I had a really good friend in high school. So I'm Maryville. Right? I went to Maryville. Maryville has this reputation, right? Being a tough area.
Sure. I went to Carl Hayden.
Yeah.
So
and Mr. Barrio. And,
I hear you.
And okay, yes. It had its, it lived up to that reputation. But I was openly gay. Like I was in, like I said, I was performing since I was a little boy. My parents knew. It was never a conversation really that I don't remember having a
really wasn't
conversation, really an issue. Yeah. It just was. So I was always openly out. Never hid anything.
That's great.
And I had a friend, Kelly Kerr. Kelly, if you're watching this, hey girl. She was the girl at high school that had all the little gay boys around her, right? Her gaybies, she called them. And she was tough. And she was also a performer. And she was tough. And she was also she's a wonderful dancer and a wonderful performer and a talented stand-up comedian today. But she was also heavier in high school. And she didn't have the body type to get cast, I guess, sometimes for the parts as a dancer.
Sure.
But she didn't care. She made it happen for herself, and I think she was one of the people that taught me. You're saying no to me. There's a lot of other yeses, so I'm going to go look for these yeses.
That's great.
So even as a fundraiser today, I think, okay, you said no. That's no, not right now. I'll talk to you later because I'll be back. I'm just going to go look for the yeses.
That's the attitude with fundraising, right?
Yeah.
That makes you a good fundraiser.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Ernesto, what have been the anchors in your life and how have they changed over your life?
Well, the arts has always been an anchor. Always, always, always. It will be till the day I die. I'm an artist first and everything else after, right?
Yeah. Sure.
And I think it's evolved, right? Like I said, I was a dancer when I was younger. These knees and these hips can't stand that right now. So I have to find other ways of expressing myself, but through that I learned a lot about myself. There was my friend Ricky and I had a podcast called Uy Kukui. Listen to it.
Oh, I love it.
And it was all things scary, like whatever it was. First we talked about monsters, and then we ended up talking about Donald Trump. But all things scary. But Yeah, it can be very scary. Yeah. But I didn't realize I liked manipulating sound, like mixing sounds. I forget what you call them, but the sound clips that would go in between the segments, and just the sound bites. There you go, and all of those things. I was very creative and I would find things like this noise, like the noises we hear around us, and that could help tell the story in the podcast. Yeah. So just things like that. So the art evolves, and I learn things about myself in every time it evolves.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is a bit of an introspective question. Okay. As the adult that you are today, what words of wisdom would you give to yourself as a child?
Oh, save all your money.
Okay.
My gosh. If I would have listened to my mother. Yeah, and you can do it. To this day, I mean, I feel like a lot of us, I struggle with imposter syndrome, right? A lot of and
in the gay community.
Yeah, in the gay community, being the one brown person inside of a room with non-brown people, especially in fundraising. Yeah, I belong there. You belong there. You can do it. You're good. And those people are just as lost as you are. So, yeah. Yes, you can.
Absolutely.
And yes, you should.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I guess I would say.
Any parting words
for
our audience, especially the younger generation?
Oh, I have to say that one, I'm very, the younger generation excites me. I learn a lot from them. I get really upset when I hear stuff like, oh, millennials, blah, 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 or those types of jokes, because I don't think it gives young people the credit that they deserve. They're very smart. They're living in a world that a lot of times we don't understand, and navigating through that.
Especially with the technology, the internet.
And, and I'm also very proud of them in that it seemed like for a good time, things like you and I dealt with, like LGBT stuff or coming out or those, it was a little different. It was a little more accepted, right? And in recent days, not so much. I feel like we've been pushed a little back in the closet. I say for them.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm assuming it's a political climate, whatever it is, pushing back in the closet. But I'm going to say push back. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
you, and the only person you have to answer to is yourself. So be authentic, be unique, you are great, and do what feels right for you. I know people are telling you what to do, but there's going to be a point where you have to decide what for yourself, right?
Right.
And if it feels right, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had talked about that in preparing for the interview today, with the political climate. It seems so. There's such toxicity, the messaging that comes across. It's just, it concerns us, with the younger generation.
Yeah.
That's what's so inspiring about you and what you've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's just a big deal. Ernesto, mil gracias, for being here today. I really appreciate it. As I said, you are a trailblazer. And you've done so many things with your career, from your childhood all the way up to your career, and you continue to make changes and positive change.
Cool.
So
well, thank
I really
you
appreciate you being.
I appreciate that. Thank you,
folks. Thank you for joining us today on Making Space, and please continue to watch Latino USA TV and Arizona Barrio Stories. Until next time.